United news, and have we got some big updates for you? We've got a centre-back talking about signing for Manchester United. His name's Todibo. I think he would do perfectly. We're also going to be talking about Fabrizio Romano's manager update, Erik Ten Hag, Thomas Tuchel, and why Manchester United must not do it. A bit of concern around the Olympics. Apparently Argentina want to call up Garnacho for the Olympics. He's already in the Copa America. If he goes to the Olympics, he misses the start of the season. Is that a potential problem for Manchester United? We'll also be talking about Manchester United being unhappy with a YouTuber, and it's not me, and a few other bits on the show as well. Lots to get into. Hope you're doing very well. Get your comments in as ever. So let's start off with the managerial situation. I want to get into these. Actually, can I just say, we're not just going to be talking about Todibo's potential to come to Manchester United. We're also going to be talking about what Todibo's had to say about working under INEOS, because he's done that with Nice for the last couple of years. And also spoke about why he didn't come to Manchester United many years ago when he had a trial with us. So some really interesting insight there. But above and beyond all of that, I genuinely think if we sign Todibo, you're going to love him. I really do think he's going to be a fantastic player for whoever he goes to. I think he's got all the attributes of a modern centre-back. It's the right time, at the right price, and he's the right player, and he's a right-footer. I think he'd be brilliant for Man United. I think he'd become a fan favourite very, very quickly. I think he's got the right mentality and the right ability. And I think it's a positive for us that he didn't get called up for France, because I think that hunger in his career is perfect for what Man United need next. And I hope we can get that sort of a deal done. I don't know where I stand on Braithwaite or Todibo. Maybe we could get a little bit of a poll running on that. But we'll come back to Todibo in a minute, because I think he's perfect for Manchester United, and with that Nice connection as well. And on top of that, this is a player that Erik Ten Hag wanted. Erik Ten Hag wanted this player. So it's very important that we recall and remember that. The first poll I'm going to start today, though, is going to be starting off about what Fabrizio Romano has said about the managerial situation, which has got a few people a little bit concerned about the future of Ten Hag again and where we might be heading. So look, when we spoke over the weekend, I think we felt that, well, nearly a week ago, just before the FA Cup final, it looked like Ten Hag was going, and I think that was the situation. There's a lot of people out there trying to be clever and think that the world is black and white, or, you know, red and green, and it's not. It's amber and grey and everything in between. So when everybody talks about, oh, last week you were saying that Man United were going to sack Erik Ten Hag, and now you're saying they might not, it's because somebody's changed their mind. When they walk into Greg's, they might want a sausage and bean melt. And all the way there, they might be saying, I'm going to have a sausage and bean melt. And then in the queue, they see somebody walk out with a really freshly cooked, steaming hot dog, and they go, sausage roll, I'm going to have that. People change their mind. And this is big, big, big news for Manchester United to sack or retain a manager. Wazza says, I'd just go for a steak bake. David says, hope it's vegan. So realistically, last Friday, they're getting rid of him. Saturday, pressure. Sunday, thinking. Monday, more towards Ten Hag staying. Tuesday, we don't know. Wednesday, we don't know. Thursday, we don't know. I don't eat at Greg's, Tina, don't worry. I have not eaten at Greg's for a very long time. But I think on Sunday morning, I'd have been 80% chance that they were getting rid of him. I think on Monday, I was 50-50. And on, was it Tuesday, when we got that brief on Tuesday nights, I was probably 70% they were going to keep him. Where am I at the moment? Well, this Fabrizio Romano update I will give you, and then I will tell you where I'm at the moment. So Fabrizio Romano has come out and said on his YouTube channel, there is a strong possibility that Ten Hag could still be replaced. I don't like those words, but I watched the interview and I watched the YouTube clip, and having interviewed Fabrizio for many years, I feel. Look, I've interviewed many people. As you know, some of my past jobs involved interviewing people who might be lying to you. Now, I'm not saying that Fabrizio is lying, but my read of what Fabrizio had to say was very much holding statement. I don't feel as if he has anything new. I don't feel as if he's Terps, as he mentioned Tuchel a lot. Well, I have a theory on that as well. I don't think Fabrizio has any updates in relation to what is happening at Man United, because he kept referring to everything's on the table. Also, the strategic review is still going on. So I don't think that Fabrizio knows that we're getting rid of Ten Hag, but I think what he does know I knew I'd use the wrong one. This one will be fine. Thanks for everybody in the chat who lets me know. I've got two, and I didn't know which one was the one I'd charged up. So that's the one I hadn't charged up. This one is the one that I had. So we're back again. Sorry about that. I couldn't, you know what? I couldn't work without you. I just couldn't work without you. But you know what? I think what I was saying there is that on the Fabrizio Romano thing, he did talk about Thomas Tuchel a hell of a lot. And my theory on this is, so on this update from Fabrizio, he basically says, what is going on with Man United and Thomas Tuchel and Erik Ten Hag, and he says there's still a strong possibility that Manchester United could sack Erik Ten Hag, and if they do, he then talks about Thomas Tuchel. It was Greg's revenge, says Nicholas. Probably, yeah. Get me a steak bake. I think, and I've always thought this about Thomas Tuchel, I think that the reason that he is being mentioned by Fabrizio last night is because Fabrizio is connected to a lot of people, and I think people close to Thomas Tuchel wants his name out there. And that's exactly what Sayer said. Exactly what Sayer said there. He has been putting his name out for jobs for weeks. And I don't think that Thomas Tuchel is high on Manchester United's list at all. And I just think that ever since he lost his Bayern Munich job, he has an ego where he wants to be in a big job and prove Bayern Munich wrong. And he needs to get a job where he can do that. Now, the interesting thing about Thomas Tuchel for me is that we've got a poll running here at the moment. 91% of you would keep Erik Ten Hag, 9% would take Thomas Tuchel. I agree with Tina G, desperate Tuchel. Do you want a manager? Let's just talk about Thomas Tuchel for a moment. And then we can talk about Ten Hag, and then we can talk about the other things. But Fabrizio Romano has spoken about Thomas Tuchel for about 90 seconds last night, saying how much he'd want the job. But at no point was it Man United are looking at Thomas Tuchel. Man United are probably going to sign Thomas Tuchel. At no point have we said that. And I think what this is what it's always been. Thomas Tuchel in a local bar, flirting around, trying to get a job, trying to get someone to buy him a drink. And I have a problem with that. I personally have a problem with that. And I think if you want Thomas Tuchel as Manchester United manager, that's fine, respect. But I would say this, if Thomas Tuchel is such an innovative and sought after coach, why is it Barcelona, a club on their knees, didn't go anywhere near him? Why is it Chelsea, where Chelsea fans love him, didn't go anywhere near him? And why is it that Liverpool, who are replacing one of the most iconic and strong personality managers in living memory, are not going anywhere near Thomas Tuchel? So my big thing is about Thomas Tuchel is, why is it that Man United would be so desperate to take a manager that is so desperate to take a job and sell that off as a new future for Man United? Barcelona don't want him, Chelsea don't want him, Liverpool don't want him, and he would go anywhere. He's not the allure of Man United is not the thing of Thomas Tuchel. The allure of a big job. If Barcelona wanted him, he'd sit there. Basically, if Thomas Tuchel, right, if Barcelona and Man United rang him up and said, where do you want to go? Then he would go, let me have a little think about it. And he'd play us like a piano. He doesn't want the Man United job. He just wants a big job. And why is it that Man United, under INEOS, are selling us this story of competence and a new future, and yet we're being linked to coaches that nobody else wants? Like, nobody wants Pochettino. Barcelona didn't want Pochettino. Liverpool didn't want Pochettino. Chelsea don't want Pochettino. Same clubs don't want Thomas Tuchel. Same clubs don't want De Zerbi. I've just seen a squirrel run past. I'm going to call it Thomas Tuchel. Keep jogging, you big-tailed prat. So, look, I want INEOS to do well. And if they keep Erik Ten Hag, then I will get behind them 100%. But what worries me about them And I cannot be one of those fans who just blindly follows, whatever they say. I worry about some of the things they're linked to. As I said to you yesterday on the video I did about the budget, I worry about the Southgate links. I worry about Joel Glazer being involved in the manager talks, which came out from Simon Stone. Joel Glazer was involved in the manager talks. I worry about all these things because they're not things that you would talk about with your mates and go, I'm really excited about the fact that Joel Glazer is working on the Manchester United sacking. I'm really excited that we're talking to Gareth Southgate and Thomas Tuchel, Thomas Squirrel. I just don't see it at all. And also, I remember Thomas Tuchel at Chelsea. It fell apart like a paper house in a gale. It was horrific at the end. Some of the stories, and we might be able to get some of these because I remember being told them at the time. Some of the stories around Thomas Tuchel at the end of Chelsea were terrible. Same at PSG, same at Bayern Munich, same at Dortmund. So one of the big things about Thomas Tuchel for me is why don't Chelsea want him? Because he's too controlling. He's got too much of a personality. So when you've got Man United, who want to bring in football by committee with Barada and Wilcox and Ashworth, why would you bring Thomas Tuchel into that? He is the why am I having to tell you things you already know? And why are we having to express our frustration about United's ownership, about something they should already know? Thomas Tuchel doesn't work well under a club that deals with the transfers. It was the big problem when Todd Boehly came in, and it was the big problem at PSG. And it's the big problem at Bayern Munich. He wants more control over recruitment. And yet United want to take it away. And what makes me laugh is that people talk about Erik Ten Hag like he is a coach that wants to control transfers. The Glazers gave him that. But actually, if Erik Ten Hag was at Ajax, we'd all be saying give Ten Hag the job. Because what he was at Ajax was a coach that worked under a committee. He had people like Overmars and Van der Sar, technical director, director of football, whatever chief executive, whatever they were at Ajax, they actually worked under a football committee. And people forget this. And I could do a whole hour talking about why I would keep Erik Ten Hag, but ultimately, INEOS are looking for a coach that can work under a football committee. And he's already done it. So Ten Hag over Tuchel is just overwhelmingly obvious for everything that Manchester United want to do. So look, I've probably gone on about that a little bit too long, but Fabrizio talking about Thomas Tuchel is Ten Hag's people, is Tuchel's people putting it out there. So he's desperate for this job because he's desperate for a job. Noel says the whole situation is very unprofessional. So where am I on this at the moment? What do I think the chances are of us keeping Erik Ten Hag? Well, I was 70% sure we were going to keep him when I last said to you. And obviously I've been 80% that they'll sack him around the FA Cup final. I think at the moment I'm still 70% they'll keep him. I think that there are intelligent people in that football club who are now waking up to the fact that Ten Hag is the right guy to stick with, that he can work under a committee, that he has got the right vision for the football club, that he is promoting youth, and that if we give him the structure above him, he will do well. And I echo the words of Sir Jim Radcliffe, who said that this football club hasn't provided any manager with a structure to be successful. So get the structure in place before you change the manager, Sir Jim. And also, this would be a very, very popular decision. And the big problem is, if you sack Ten Hag and you bring Tuchel in, you're making yourself massively, massively unpopular straight away, because he is not the guy. He is not the guy, in my opinion. Also, just before we talk about the Todibo story, I've got to say a little bit sorry, let me just say. Right, bit of sad news. Yesterday, during the morning stream, over by the back window, I could see magpies flying up and down, and they were having a bit of a fight. I just thought it was an irritating noise. Imagine my horror when I went outside after the show yesterday afternoon and found a dead magpie. This was not just a morning fight, bit of fitness work down the gym for these magpies. Little did I know, the noise in the background of the show yesterday was actually a gladiator fight to the death. I mean, I never knew Magpies did that, but there was about 4 of them. And I tell you what, it's going to live with me for at least 48 hours that I should have gone to the window and seen what was happening. But I never knew that. So Nature Bridge with Goldbridge, I never knew that. Never knew that at all. Dean says, rest in peace to the Magpie. John says, let's be honest, INEOS don't even know anyone, says John. Steak bake, says Blair C. Thank you very much for the super chats, and make sure you smash a like on the video. Right, let's talk about Todibo. This is more positive news, and I really want to get into this because this is a player that I really liked as a target for Manchester United. And I think he's certainly a player that has given an interview that is not only about potentially coming to Manchester United, but also a player that has spoken about INEOS as well. So basically, look, the major update about coming to Manchester United I will give you, first of all, is that he was asked directly about whether he would like to come and sign for Manchester United. Asked if he wants to move to Man United, Todibo said, I'm going to keep that for me. Nice try. So you're telling me there's a chance. But let's give you a bit of a background on Todibo. So I always forget his age because I get mixed up with somebody else. I think he might be 25. I've always thought, no, it's 24. So experienced, yes, certainly, and the right sort of player that we could be going for. Not a good week for Magpies, says Andy C, with the death of the Magpie. Yeah, you could say that. I mean, I was joking that it was Newcastle fans arguing about not getting into Europe. But let's talk about Todibo, because that's what we want to talk about. So in relation to Todibo, he's given an interview about the situation, his situation, and INEOS. Nothing's wrong with Greg's Flash Talks. If they want to do a sponsor, I'll have a bake. Don't worry about that. He's admitted that he did have talks in January with Spurs and Manchester United. He said, honestly, I don't want to talk about my future because of my respect for the fans here at Nice. But we had a little discussion for sure. So we know that Spurs had a little bit of a go for him in January, which I think actually enhances our chances, because I think he's always been a Man United move. And I'm a little bit confused by the information that some people get. I mean, there are some people out there that profess to know what's going on at the football club and then open their mouths and you realise they don't know. They might have a little bit of information, but they certainly don't know a lot about what's going on with the manager, what's going on with budgets, and then they'll come out with something about a player and you'll go, oh, maybe they have got a bit of information there. But I think with regards to Todibo, he doesn't feature on a lot of people's lists for what Man United are looking at. When you look at yesterday, all the briefs were really about Branthwaite and others. And it surprises me because Todibo on our Hotometer has always been, behind Elise, the second most likely signing. And that's not based on making stuff up. That's based on when we've had Fabrizio on the show. That's based on the fact that we tried to sign him last summer, that he's been on our transfer list scouted as a major centre-back target for well over 18 months. And this is obviously under the Eric Ten Hag era. So, and also, it's almost like the perfect marriage, because you've got a manager and a recruitment team that really like Todibo as the right sort of right-sided centre-back who's quick and good on the ball. And then INEOS take over the club and want to take over the footballing side of things, and they own Nice and they like Todibo. So not only have you got a player that the current management and the current scouting network like, you've also got a new ownership that really like him as well. So it's a match made in heaven. Does he have a release clause, says Reagan? No, but we also own Nice, like they own Nice. So I think as long as it's a fair price, 34, 35 million, then I think that's an easily obtainable deal. As I said at the start of the show, I really do think that from this interview, you can gauge a lot about his suitability for Manchester United and his desire to come to Manchester United. I think also, when you look at him as a player, he's pretty unlucky not to be part of the Euros, but as we know, France have a massive array of French centre-backs, funnily enough. They're all French, who'd have thought. But no, they have a massive depth of talent at centre-back, and Todibo didn't quite make it in. But I think part of that is probably because he plays for Nice. He needs to make that next step, and he is going to make that next step this summer. At Manchester United, next to Martinez, you can envisage a centre-back pairing that takes us to the next level for the next 3 or 4 years. The issue with Varane is that Varane is our best centre-back, but he is injury-prone and he is into his 30s. What you need at Man United is a sustainable centre-back that can play 60, 70, 80, 90% of your games together. And I think that what will happen is Manchester United will make a move for this player. I'm absolutely convinced that they will. I think he's the right player. I think he's got the right attributes, and I think it's the right time. And more importantly, as we read some of the quotes about him, I think he's got the right profile. We can't just look at players now and go, he's a good player playing for Dortmund. He's a good player playing for Benfica. He's a good player playing for Everton. We've done this before. We've got to look at fitness, obviously, conditioning, and mentality. And when you listen to some of these comments from Todibo, I think it's really interesting. He says that, talking about INEOS, he said, they changed a lot of things when they came in. They gave us comfort. So there is a mood around the team to allow the team to succeed. They put a lot of importance on being around the players to give them the opportunity to have the best performance they can. Also, he says that I had trials at Forest, La Havre and Man United when I was 15, but I chose to join Toulouse. The culture was different at United and Forest. They were like players, they weren't like the players in my neighbourhood just trying to enjoy it. They were on a mission, trying to be professional. That wasn't my mindset at the time. I was there to enjoy and play football. So basically what he's been saying is that he didn't feel ready to join Manchester United or a Premier League club when they first came knocking, because he didn't feel that he had the right mentality for it. But what he's saying now is that he does have that. And he said that also, before you start to think about football, players should think about what they need to do to perform. INEOS are responsible for our mindset, but also as players, we take responsibilities because we are competitors and we want to win. So I think there's, I found this a fascinating interview from Todibo, because he said that INEOS bring an influence, they bring a mentality, but also across that interview, it was very self-serving in the sense that when he was younger, he's basically saying, I didn't really have the mentality. I just wanted to enjoy my football. And what he's saying now is that, you know, the responsibility is with the player, and he does have that mentality now. And I suppose that's a lesson to all young players, isn't it? You don't necessarily have that mentality to be consistent and motivated and professional as a young player, but it can be learnt behaviour. And I think that that's really, really interesting what he's had to say there. The interesting thing I would say about INEOS, though, is he talks about Sir Jim Radcliffe and Sir David Brailsford and their interaction with the players, and how they're really good at, you know, motivating players and making players feel good. And, you know, Sir David Brailsford brings a lot from cycling that you can use in the mentality of elite sports people in football. I don't necessarily dismiss what he's got to say about INEOS, but INEOS haven't done a great job at Nice. So it's interesting how Todibo speaks of INEOS like that. But when you actually look at the job they've done at Nice, it's been a little bit, you know, average, to say the least. So I actually take that as a positive, because I think this is a player that is flirting with Manchester United to a certain extent. He's, you know, he's really bigging up INEOS. He's not ruling out signing for Manchester United. And I think it is a plea of come and get me. And I certainly think that when it comes to centre-backs, and I'll do a poll on this in a minute, I would put Todibo as probably my number one centre-back at the moment. I really would. I know he's a bit of a niche signing from Nice, but his attributes are exactly what we need. And I like Branthwaite, but I think with Branthwaite, there is the British bias. He's a very, very good centre-back. I saw him play against Man City and he got absolutely owned, and everyone was like, he's a load of shit. And the answer is, he's not a load of shit. Branthwaite would be a very good signing. But if you're offering me Branthwaite at 70 million and Todibo at 35, I've just saved you 35 million. Piece of piss. Sahil says, hi Mark, hope you're well. Ten Hag in, but Todibo is a huge no for me. Not good enough for the Premier League and has been injured throughout his whole career, says Sahil. Well, I don't think you've really watched enough of him, mate, but we'll leave it to the chat. And I don't think he's been injured for most of his career either. So I don't know where you're pulling that from. Jake says, and United's biggest problem with Ten Hag is him falling out with the players. Ronaldo, Sancho, Varane, the list goes on. The players are way more valuable than Eric Ten Hag. They will get a coach that can work with them. Jim wants a cog, mark my words, someone like Southgate, says Jake. I mean, Jake, I have to choose my words carefully here. So the problem with Erik Ten Hag is that he tunes out with players, falls out with players. The problem with your statement is you put Gareth Southgate in there. And also, if Ten Hag falls out with players, why did they play for him in an FA Cup final where they could have lost and got rid of him? We've seen Mourinho, Ollie, Rangnick get sacked by players who down tools to get rid of them. These players have had multiple opportunities to sack Erik Ten Hag, and they went and beat Newcastle, Brighton and Man City in their final 3 games. I mean, if they're trying to sack him, they ain't very, very good at it, are they? An hour-long podcast about Ten Hag. Rest in peace, Will, says MMA. Got no idea what you're talking about. This is not a podcast. Chilled Aussie say, what for the... I don't know what you're talking about there. Let's get rid of you. And what's wrong with Greg's, says Flash Talks. Thank you very much for that. Vicky says, I don't know why it's taken this long to decide on a manager. Well, Vicky, I just want to end this poll. 89% of you would go with Erik Ten Hag. 11% of you would go with Thomas Tuchel, by the way. So let's end that poll. I want to run another one here. Run this back. Either or. Todibo. Oh, I can't even bloody spell here. Todibo or Brandthwaite. Not poll. Few bits more to get into. Just that question there that came in from Vicky about the scenario around Erik Ten Hag and INEOS and their strategic review. We were always told it was going to take a bit of time, and it clearly is going to take a bit of time. I'd be very surprised if we heard anything today, potentially tomorrow, but I would say probably next week to give Ten Hag a week off. Look, they could still drop that they're sacking him. They could easily drop that they're sacking him. I mean, I'm not stupid, I don't think you are, but the problem I have with it is that everybody's entitled to sack a manager, but the desperation in the alternatives is terrifying. You know, I've said it before as an analogy. If you're in a relationship that you're not sure you want to be in, you just go down your local Reflex or whatever they call these clubs now and grab what you can. Like, this is a big decision. Make sure you get it right. And the bottom line is, we all know that manager market is not the one that INEOS wish they were working in. They don't. This is not the time to be replacing the manager. The manager market is absolute shite. Absolute rubbish. It's terrible. Absolutely terrible. That's why Bayern Munich are going for a young coach. That's why Liverpool have gone for a young coach. It's why Chelsea are going for a young coach, because the manager market is terrible. And it's not my opinion. Whoever says, well, that's your opinion, Mark, it's not my opinion. It's the opinion of major football clubs. Your opinion might be that you want Thomas Tuchel, or you want De Zerbi, or you want Pochettino because you're so desperate to get rid of this manager. You're desperate. You're absolutely desperate, and you're factually desperate, because it's not my opinion. It's the opinion of Barcelona. It's the opinion of Bayern Munich. It's the opinion of Chelsea, and it's the opinion of Liverpool. All clubs that have been way more successful than us in the last decade. Liverpool, Barcelona, Chelsea, and Bayern Munich are way more successful than Man United in the last 10 years. And none of them will go anywhere near Pochettino, De Zerbi, or Thomas Tuchel. And yet some of you are absolutely legs wide open saying, come and join us. And I just think it's desperation. As I said, if Carlo Ancelotti or Unai Emery were on that list, I'd go, maybe Ten Hag's in a little bit of trouble here. But this is just bad ownership. To even be considering the scraps of the manager market that nobody else wants is terrifying, because that's what it is. They are the scraps of the current managerial market. And the hilarious thing is, the only manager out of any of those that can work under a committee is De Zerbi and Ten Hag, because Ten Hag did it at Ajax and De Zerbi did it at Brighton. Pochettino and Thomas Tuchel don't even work under the model that INEOS are putting out there. So I wish people would actually do their homework when they're talking about, I don't want Thomas Tuchel and I don't want Pochettino, but I'll take the time for the community to do a bit of research on what type of managers they are. And also, I don't think Pochettino's style of football or Thomas Tuchel's style of football is that interesting. And I don't think a lot of you have actually watched it. When I look at Thomas Tuchel, when he was at Chelsea playing against the likes of Man City, it was pretty pragmatic football. So, but look, ultimately, we're meant to be getting a manager that can work under a committee. Well, Ten Hag's done it at Ajax, De Zerbi's done it at Brighton, McKenna would have been an unknown. Beyond those three, and I don't want De Zerbi, and I think McKenna's right to stay at Ipswich, but if we're going to appoint a manager, we should at least have a short list of managers that actually suit the system that we want to go down. And also, Thomas Tuchel, well, I've said enough. The club owe their fans the decency to know who their manager is going to be without dragging it out this way, says Tina G. A night out with Goldbridge at Reflex, says Nick P. Ndidi contract up in the summer, says Jack. We're not mentioning Ndidi. It's not 2016. What about Antonio Silva at Benfica? Very expensive, Sean. Anything from Benfica is going to be very, very expensive. And Parker says, does anybody remember when Klopp arrived at Liverpool and how he broke all the players and got rid of all the weak ones? They then built a beast of an attack, says Parker. And Rory C says, from my reading of the Sky article yesterday, we will be banned from transfers with Nice if both are allowed to play in Europa next season, says Rory C. Mate, I will talk about this very briefly because I want to talk about the Garnacho Olympic call-up. If INEOS get us kicked out of the Europa League because they own Nice and Man United, they should be kicked out of football altogether. I mean, the Glazers put Man United up for sale 18 months ago. If we get kicked out of the Europa League because we've got dual owners, we're thicker than I thought. And if we can't do transfers with Nice because of that, we're thicker than we thought. They've been through due diligence and a whole year. Actually, wasn't it? It was 14 months. Actually, it was 15 months. It was 15 months from the Glazers putting the club up to sale to selling 25%. If we have made some stupid error that we can't do transfers with Nice or we can't be in the Europa League because of them, then they want kicking out because that's just fucking thick. I don't think for 1 minute it'll happen. I think we'll be able to play in the Europa League and I think we'll be able to do business as well. But I agree with Jim's. I think Todibo should be Varane's replacement, yes. Thank you very much for that though, Rory. Very interesting insight. Sohail, thank you very much. We've spoken about you. Jason Williams says, I just want to say our players after this season don't deserve the wage we pay them, so drop them all 5k a week and use it to stop the redundancies, says Jason. Yeah, you know, that's never going to happen though, is it? You know, these footballers, they need their hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, and these people who are going to get made redundant on 30k a week are going to be, you know, in jeopardy of being able to pay bills and all sorts. But it's always the small people that suffer, isn't it? As we know, in all walks of life, it's not the rich and powerful that suffer. It's those at the bottom. I think it's very sad, but you know, they're not players for Man United, so they won't get any publicity, will they? They're on 30k a year, not 30k a week, says Ash. Exactly. Anyway, back to more topical news. Let's talk about this story that's just coming out today in relation to Garnacho. So Mascherano, formerly of Liverpool and West Ham and Argentina and Barcelona, has apparently requested that Manchester United release Garnacho for the Olympics. So they're waiting to hear back from Manchester United on this, and it absolutely categorically will have to be a no. Has to be a no. We cannot, under any circumstances, be releasing Garnacho for the Olympics, which take place in August. He would miss the start of the season. He's also playing in the Copa America. So it has to be a no. Now, I think this has happened before. I'm pretty sure this happened before in some sort of tournament with Mascherano that happened maybe a couple of years ago. I can't remember. He does need the rest, Ryan. You're absolutely correct. But he has been called up to the Copa America squad as well. And you've got to be very careful here. Something like this happened before, and I can't remember what it was. Somebody in the chat will know. It can't be for it can't be 4 years ago, the last Olympics, but there was something a year or two ago where it happened. Was it the Youth World Cup? It was last year in the Under-21 World Cup. That was it, Kenny, legend. So I'm going to start doing comments of the show, actually, because we had that one yesterday that was very good as well. It was the Youth World Cup, as a lot of you are saying. Now, we said no, didn't we? But Garnacho was quite disappointed by it. And what you have to remember is that these players, Brazilians, Argentinians, Portuguese, we might not, well, it's happening with England now. They're very patriotic, and playing for your country in the Under-21 World Cup or the Olympics is actually quite appealing to these players. So Paul Lucas says football in the Olympics isn't important. Well, it's not important to us because we don't even put a team in, but it is really important to them. And I think that we might have to be a little bit careful with this because Garnacho may well want to do it, but a message to Garnacho would be your development over last year, because you didn't go to the Under-21 World Cup, was exceptional. And you don't want to start this season not in that Man United first 11, especially if we brought Elise in. Rashford will still be here. He'll have had a good summer. So I think that for Garnacho, it would be a bad idea to go to the Copa America and then go to the Olympics as well. So it will be a flat no from Man United, but I just hope that as part of that flat no, Garnacho understands why, because youngsters want to play without limits. They want to do everything. You know, he might want to win an Olympic gold with Argentina. And as Savage said, he's a kid. He wouldn't know any better. Rory C says, I'd be worried about disgruntling him. Exactly. But Man United need to convey that in a way where, look, of course, going and playing in the Olympics is really exciting because the Olympics is exciting and you could win a gold medal. But we need you at Manchester United. You're a very important player. Say says we shouldn't allow him. I disagree. I disagree on that. Interestingly, on the Todibo or Branthwaite story, who would you prefer? 78% going for Todibo and 22% going with Branthwaite. Don't really know the background to that. I thought it might be a little bit closer, but yes. Just been asked a question as well in the chat. Laura says, back Ten Hag, bring in Todibo, Edison and Elise. I tell you what, Laura, I'll have a pint of that. That sounds fantastic. Rashford PR with a super chat that doesn't say anything else. Yes, I think that I would really like Todibo, Edison and Elise as a starting point. I think that'd be fantastic. Aaron S, one of our members, says Branthwaite is too expensive. Somebody in the chat just said, what would you do about, why is the mic so bad? Mate, we've been doing this all week. I'm in a room that's got massive ceilings. The audio is not going to be great. Understand it or don't? It's simple. Last night, Beth did a show talking about Joao Felix and a swap deal for Mason Greenwood. Look, I'll just be honest from the start. I like Joao Felix. I really do like Joao Felix. And I think he's a player that's not realised his potential. Would I swap him for Mason Greenwood? No. No. We don't need Joao Felix, and he's not a player that fits in with what we need. Joao Felix, for me, is an attacker that can play false nine, number 10, right wing, left wing. But he's not a right winger, he's not a left winger, and he's not a striker. And I think when I look at that, I would say that Manchester United swapping Mason Greenwood for Joao Felix would be bringing in a player that doesn't really fill any of the issues we've got to swap a player where we could get 40 million quid for. For me, Mason Greenwood represents pure profit and cash that could be spent on Todibo, Branthwaite, Elise, Edison, a striker. So look, I think if you were in a position where, if you were Man City, I like Joao Felix, but if you were Man City, you might do that deal because why not? I've got the squad, why not do it? But as Terp says, we need the cash. And I do like Joao Felix, but we need the cash. So as Savage says, we need pure profit. So we're not in a position to go, and Joao Felix is a risk. I do like him, but he's a risk. And also interesting about Joao Felix, I think the reason Beth spoke about it last night was because although it could be a load of nonsense, we've tried to sign Joao Felix 3 times in the time that Eric Ten Hag's been here. The first summer we got priced out. The second, the January transfer window, we got priced out and he went to Chelsea. And last summer we inquired as well. So he is a player that Eric Ten Hag likes. And I think there is a player there. I think he is a very good player, but he's just not grabbed his opportunities. But for us, I wouldn't be swapping Greenwood because we need pure cash. Reece says we don't need him anyway because Garnacho is our Joao Felix. Yeah, and also you've got a profile of players like Bruno Fernandes, Mason Mount, Ahmad, Garnacho. There's some younger players coming through like Lacey, who are all players that can do what Joao Felix does. So I would agree with you. Jacob Harrington, shout out. You're a legend. Thank you very much for joining the members club. Felix would just be back up to Bruno like Mount as travelling pundit. Thank you very much. Similar thing happened to Pedri. Finished the season, went to the Euros, then played the Olympics, and it ruined him, says Olag. Fat, welcome to the members club. You're a legend as well. And Brian, who's been a member for 2 months, says, I voted Todibo because he'd probably be cheaper. Thank you very much for your comments that are coming in. Make sure you subscribe, by the way. Bottom right-hand corner, we've got you covered off on the United Stand. Anything breaks, anything makes, we'll be live. Make sure you subscribe, get your notifications on, and smash a like on the video. Where do you think Greenwood will go to? Mason Greenwood's got to go to the best place that he wants to go. It's not for me to say. If I was him, I'd quite fancy Juventus. I'd quite fancy Atletico Madrid. I'd quite fancy Barcelona. I don't think I'd fancy Dortmund. I don't think Dortmund. The Bundesliga has been very good this season, but it still doesn't have the reputation of La Liga or even Serie A and Juventus. So I'm not. Dortmund are a better team than Juventus. I just think I'd rather go to Juventus or Barcelona or Atletico Madrid. Richard says, I'm not saying this would have been the main driver, but wouldn't United players have to take a pay cut if they hadn't qualified for Europe, says Richard. Yes. Finding the motivational reason to beat Man City in the FA Cup final is like finding a needle in a haystack. We can believe it was players playing for the fans and themselves. It could also be because they're going to get a big pay cut. There's a multitude of reasons. The bottom line is we won and we celebrate. Simple as that. Morning, Mark. Seems to be a running theme that INEOS do not do due diligence with anything. Everyone comes together to save Ten Hag. Europa League debacle. Director of football dragging. List goes on. How are we looking for the summer, says Tom. That was the chair. I want to say about INEOS that if they keep Eric Ten Hag, they will get my complete and utter support this summer. And I think a lot of people feel that way. If they get rid of him, I think it's open season because there are a lot of things that you've listed off there that I have concerns about. The Dan Ashworth thing has just been an embarrassment. It's been a PR nightmare. You know, he was going to be our director of football at the end of January. It's June and he's still not the director of football. It's embarrassing. The way that Ten Hag's been hung out to dry when they've been in charge of the football club for 4 months is embarrassing. Also, the genuine links to people like Gareth Southgate and Thomas Tuchel who don't fit Man United is embarrassing. Their control of media leaks, although it was bad under the Glazers, is embarrassing. Sir Jim Ratcliffe talking about what he wants to do with the club like Arsenal and then completely contradicting himself by basically trying to sack another manager, which is what the Glazers have done. Repeating a lot of the mistakes that the Glazers have made as well. Ignoring fan opinion when one of his big statements at the start was, we will listen to fans. I mean, I've been clipped up a couple of times. Well, I've probably been clipped up loads, but I've seen a couple of clips where, you know, I find it hilarious. You know, fans of Manchester United clipping me up saying fan opinion's really important. And they're like ridiculing it. And they're a fan. I'm like, but you're a football fan of this football club. And you're ridiculing me for saying that football fans are important. Hello, I run the United Stand, the biggest Manchester United fan community in the world, one of the biggest fan communities in the world. It's not shocking when I defend fan opinion, but you're also hypocrites because Sir Jim Ratcliffe, in his opening statement as Man United's partial owner, said, we want to be listening to the fans, part of the fans, and, you know, give them a voice. So fans give a voice. And then these minority lots start going, no, they shouldn't listen to them. But this is what we're on about. You said you know more than INEOS, mate. Well, at the moment, I think I do. I don't care. I think you do as well. And I didn't just say me, I meant like I said you as well. I've just listed off the reasons. Some of you may have very, very sheltered lives, and some of you may not realise just how much you know. You watch Manchester United every single game. You probably watch the United stand every single day. You live, consume and breathe Manchester United. And what I liked about Sir Jim was that he said, I'm a lifelong Man United fan. And I was like, well, if he's a lifelong Man United fan, he's older than me. He's older than Ricky. He must know everything. And I've just listed off a load of things that make me concerned about what they actually do know. Look, there's no doubt INEOS know a lot about mentality and sport performance, but what Manchester United is a degree in itself. You can't ask a Liverpool fan to tell you things that you take for granted about Man United, and I can't tell you the same things about Liverpool. I haven't seen, look, I don't care what anybody says. I stand by it. I haven't seen evidence from INEOS yet that they know more about Man United than you. I don't. Gareth Southgate being genuinely linked to a Man United job, that's something you would kick your dog out for saying that, and they can't even speak. I mean, we've genuinely been linked to Gareth Southgate. We've genuinely been linked to to Graham Potter. These are things that you wake up in the middle of the night with the sweats going, oh my God, I dreamt I did have a dream about Gareth Southgate the other night. Walking down the street, and he went, you've been slagging me off for years, and we just got into a big argument. And I basically said, I want England to win, but I still think you're crap. But when I saw United getting linked to Thomas Tuchel and Gareth Southgate, I was like, in Sir Alex Ferguson's book, he said Brian Kidd walked in and said, shall we sign John Hartson? And he said, we're Manchester United. Like, there are certain players and there are certain managers that you don't link to Manchester United. And the fact that INEOS have been allowing that makes me wonder. Look, the jury is out here. If you don't want the jury to be out and you want to, attach yourself to INEOS's arse, that's absolutely fine. But I, at the moment, remain unconvinced by INEOS based on some of the stuff that's gone over the last few months, which I think are very, very misguided in relation to what this football club's all about. And it makes me go, well, Sir Jim Ratcliffe is the owner of this football club and he's a lifelong fan, and yet he's happy for this football club to be linked to Gareth Southgate. There is no Man United fan I've spoken to in the last 3 months that has said, yeah, you know what, we should consider him. There isn't. And those sort of things are where the trust will come based on good decisions. But trust should always be earned. It should always be earned, 100%. Eric Ten Hag out and Zidane in, says Hashim. Well, we've never been linked to him. Laura, welcome to the Members Club. You're absolute legend. Thank you very much. There was a couple of other things I wanted to talk about here. I'll bring this in as a bit of a news segment towards the end. So the situation with so I don't know what your thoughts are on this, actually. It's a bit of a light-hearted bit at the end of the show because it is a news show. So Speed, you might know who Speed is, was part of the Manchester United after party after the FA Cup final. Apparently, Manchester United weren't very happy about this. Somebody said to me, can you do a poll on this? Should Speed have been at, don't say we don't do everything on here. Look, at the end of the day, we don't take ourselves too seriously. And anybody that's been part of this community long enough knows that we do like a bit of a laugh. So Speed, or I Show Speed, I always call him Speed, was at the after party. And apparently a lot of people around Man United weren't happy that he was there. I don't know whether it was players, executives, staff, whatever. He got in because of Garnacho. That's the story. And I just read this story and I was like, look, at the end of the day, kick him out if you don't want him to be there. And look, I'll be honest, I did look around social media And some of the older fans, and I don't want to be, I mean, I'm old myself, but obviously I've been part of the Sideman charity game. I'm doing the beta squad game on Sunday. So as old as I am, I still am sort of in that world. But, you know, for some people, it's like, what the hell is he doing in there with Man United players jumping around and everything? But some of these United players are young and they know him and they like it. So I think that I'm of the mind of who cares? You know, would I have liked to been in the after party? Probably not. I think it's a little bit too not my scene really, but I bet many of you would be. I bet you'd absolutely love to be in there. And the fact that he's in there is look, for his brand, it's absolutely massive getting pictures with those sort of players and everything like that. But I don't think it's a story. I really don't think it's a story. And I certainly don't think it's a story to start going after someone like Garnacho or his brother or anybody like that. I don't think it's an issue. I saw it yesterday. I was meant to bring it into the show yesterday and I forgot about it. But if we're worried about who's in an after party, then I don't think it's relevant. I think the most important thing for me is that we had an after party. And if we're moaning about who was at an after party, then we're missing the point that we actually had an after party. So for me, it doesn't care. I don't really care. Tom Grant says, you at the after party, bull in a china shop, says Tom. Rashford PR says, Wilcox, Barada, Brailsford Blank should in total be around 50 to 60 million, as Dan is also 10. Could that be the reason for the low budget this summer, says Rashford? Well, I've never thought about it like that. How much did Jason Wilcox cost? How much did Barada cost? Brailsford is part of INEOS and so is Blanc, so I don't think there's a cost other than their wages. But I don't understand how that works anyway, if I'm being completely honest. Jim says that speed should be there and so should United stand. And thank you very much for that. Are we going to get linked to Jurgen Klopp? Yeah, Paul Lucas says the good thing is there was a reason for an after party. Equals silverware. We'll never get linked to Jurgen Klopp, and as much as I think Jurgen Klopp's a fantastic manager, he can never be Man United manager, and he never would anyway. There's no doubt about that. Apparently Mason Mount's on £250,000 a week. Look, that needs to stop. All of that needs to stop. We're fully aware of that. There's no two ways about it. We've got to start recruiting better, and it's not Ten Hag, it's not Solskjaer, it's not Mourinho who sort the wages out. So we 100% need to start doing those sort of things a lot better. Do you think we'll find out about the management situation today? No, I don't. But I think that what would disappoint me the most is if, as I said on Sunday, they're trying to let the FA... I mean, look, this is really important. If you're Ten Hag in, whoever you are, match going, online, you're a Man United fan, if you're Ten Hag in, don't go quiet. Because there is a slim chance that the Glazers and INEOS are waiting for this to die down and then sack him on the quiet. Because if they'd sacked him on Sunday or Monday, after the FA Cup win, there'd have been an outcry. And if they wait a week and do it, maybe they're thinking it won't be as big an outcry. So if you are somebody that's Ten Hag in and you want us to move forward with that, then I wouldn't rest on your laurels. I wouldn't expect it. I mean, I do think we're going to keep him now. And I think that that's a positive. And I really want to get behind INEOS for that. But the big thing that concerns me is that Joel Glazer is part of this decision, as Simon Stone said in the BBC. You know, Joel Glazer is part of this decision, and I don't know why. So it worries me as to what's going on. But we can't keep making the same mistake. We can't keep sacking managers and gambling on somebody else that doesn't actually fit us. So Casper says Fabrizio updates were not so assuring. Well, I think Fabrizio's update was basically a bit of a, you know, shout out that Tuchel wants the job again, which he's been doing for months, for any job. And also, nobody really knows what's happening. I hope that's the case anyway, Phil. Anyway, look, thanks everybody for watching. You're absolute legends. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. We'll be back again this evening and at 2 if anything happens as well. We will be back with you, of course. I'd like to see some developments around transfers, but I think, are we waiting to sort the managerial situation out at the moment? Also, are they waiting for Ten Hag to get back on from holiday before they sack him? Are they letting him have a week off? You know, there's all sorts of conspiracy theories you could follow. But if they sack him for Tuchel, I'm going to go fucking mad. I mean, as I said, if you want to clip something up, clip that bit up about Tuchel. Why is it Barcelona on their knees, Liverpool on their knees, Chelsea on their knees, won't go anywhere near this guy? But Man United are going, oh, he could work. Hilarious, absolutely hilarious, if it wasn't scary. Phil, you're a legend. Welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much for that. Take care, everyone. Make sure you smash a like and subscribe. I'll speak to you later. Take care.